Hello, welcome to CLSP Politics. Sean Briscoe speaking. So today I thought, as a part six, I would look at the other industries because we talked about oil, and I thought we'd talk about the other industries that are moving into South and Central America and what part they might play in this whole picture of what's happening. Uh, so yeah, it's time to talk about tech in Central and South America because it is happening right now. Uh, So the first question is why data centers are a hotspot in Central and South America. There's a few reasons for that. First thing is a smartphone. That's the first thing, right? Smartphones are everywhere. Central and South America are not separate from that. They use AI, 5G, all the digital services. Social media is huge. Streaming's huge. It's all there and it's growing at an exponential rate. They have a lot of 20, 30, and 40-year-olds, right, that are into that tech, understand that tech, grew up with that tech, and want to use that tech. So they have, you know, they've rapid digital adoption, huge, you know, the, and, the cloud providers are not. They know what's happening. They have the direct data to see the adoption levels that are happening. They know what's coming down the pipe. And not only do they're like, how do you know they know? Well, AWS, which is Amazon Web Services, just dropped $4 billion into cloud infrastructure in Chile. You're like, why Chile? Chile's that's weird. It isn't if you think about it, right? Chile runs the entire length of, or pretty much the entire length of South America. It's effectively ocean and it's just mountains. And then they got this little piece of land. Well, fun fact about those mountains is that water runs down them, which is effectively free electricity to these guys. So they put in some infrastructure uh, and then get some hydroelectric power out of these mountains because gravity's free. Water collects on the mountains and rolls off of it. Just happens all the time. So there is power there. And if you go back and you look at my channel, you'll see I've done some shows on what do these data service centers and how do they impact communities. Well, Virginia just got lambasted over the last decade with these data centers. That's why their power bills are going up 30-40%. Somebody's got to pay for it. And the power companies are like, well, we have this many electrons and with this much use, and the market determines the value of that electron, and there we go. So with Chile, they don't really have that. That's why a $4 billion investment, perfect, no problem. And I mean, and that and then expansion of global providers is part of it, right? So the other thing, they have a young population, and there's an economic competitive advantage to this, right? There's this thing called latency, and latency effectively is the time it takes for it to go from your AI portal to the data center and then back again. And if that's to travel on these really long cables that go across the Gulf of Mexico, or even across the oceans, well, that's time, and time is money. And so these guys are very cognizant of this. So they're focused on the data center costs, reducing that, so cheaper land and labor costs for building these, because really most of the jobs are created just building these data centers, and then after that it's just maintenance and replacing hardware. And then it's power. That's your actually biggest recurring cost for these places: power and water. It's what Texas is discovering. So these countries that have lots of power and lots of water are perfect for data centers. And also these countries want to become critical hubs for regional connectivity because information's power, and they're going to have that, and that's what they want. They're not this is all about making money. Um, and then they have sustainability factors, right? And I talked about that. The amount of renewable resources, like I said, like Venezuela's got 3/4 of all their power is generated with hydroelectric. That's exactly what these companies look for. So if they can get a if they can have a stable government in a country where they know that, their investments won't be seized, kind of like what happened to the oil industry 30 years ago in Venezuela, then that's a bonus for them because they don't want to build these data centers and have them taken by the government. They want certain, reliable partners that they can work with. So, you know, and if these governments give them tax incentives and regulatory support's another way of saying, yeah, if it hurts our people, we'll overlook it. And they like that too, right? So these regulatory factors are huge. Um, so there's also a labor issue, right? They have a lot of it. Central and South America have a huge amount of young people that are dynamic, 20, 30, and 40-year olds who have grown up with this technology, understand this technology, and they're looking for jobs. And whereas Europe demographically is, going away, China is going to go away demographically. There's more 65-year-olds than 20-year-olds in China. That's not sustainable. Their one child policy, created this environment, and tech moving to other countries where the labor's cheaper and environmental regulations are less is what they do. That's how unregulated capitalism works. This is not new. We've seen this, all of this we've seen before. Saw this 40 years ago. We're seeing it again. It's a different industry, same reason, right? Real quick, if you haven't already, like and subscribe. If you're running for office, you can go to my website or just email me at Sean@CLSP I'm on YouTube, Blue Sky, Substack, TikTok, Instagram, all that fun stuff. And if you want to support the work this channel does, you can go to my YouTube and donate through my PayPal, or you can go to my Substack and just become a Substack, member. So cool. So growing local talent. So tech talent, especially in software development, cloud, cybersecurity, and data services, expands due to educational enrollment and certification programs, right? So the government meets the company. Actually, the company will go ahead and, invest in a pool of a population that's conducive to that, right? They have to be young because, you need a large pool, and then you can build locally that supply chain of talent. And you know the governments know that that's the future of their economy because they want higher tax revenue. They want to be able to expand services and grow their country, right? So they build local capacity alongside infrastructure projects so that they can then generate the workers that they need to take advantage of the IT. Uh, you know, this leads to a competitive edge and economic development, obviously, right? Because they're, strong tech workforce helps retain digital jobs domestically. It supports innovation and ecosystems inside their country. They want their Silicon Valley, right? They want that for their country because it helps with education, it helps with jobs, and everything else that streams off of that, right? And so it keeps them in the game, and it lets them grow and and develop as a country. And so local markets create opportunities. Large scale data centers and cloud expansion creates high paid skilled labor. That means more tax revenue. That means they develop engineers and operators and advanced IT roles, all that stuff. All the rise of crowd work. It's huge. So if you've got this huge pool of talent in your country, they can then use their talent all over the world. because you have the IT infrastructure, you have everything going for you. And that's how they do it. You know, uh, they integrate the global tech production and they use their country as a hub, right? And these corporations love that. And they love that the governments are willing to overlook certain things as long as they can get there. And then on top of that, the governments get regional strategic significance. See how that it's like they play off each other quite a bit there. Data centers are becoming, uh noticeable part of the FDI, which is the foreign direct investment, right? And that flows into Latin America, hence the $4 billion into Chile. Not many other industries are looking to drop $4 billion into a project in South and Central America. These IT companies have the capital to do that. And then the only other companies that have the capital to do that are oil companies. But expanding oil markets doesn't really benefit their dollar to barrel issue that they've got. So these countries look at this economic attraction and growth, to help with their competitive digital infrastructure, right? So countries investing in data centers and connectivity aim to compete with North America and Europe, right? And they're going to. Well, they have the labor, they have the tech, and they just need the infrastructure. And these companies are willing to provide it if the government's stable. And to be honest, the US government gives them certain, hey, guarantee it's not going to end like the oil industry in Venezuela 40 years ago. You're not going to have drop $44 billion into Chile and then Chile's government just take it, right? We'll stand with you and keep that from happening because we're a superpower, blah, 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 right? So that's part of it. As these companies go into these other countries, rest assured, the U.S. will have a vested interest in their success. That's how it works. Because once you've done all these things, you can now integrate with the global tech supply, which is what it's all about, right? Everyone's talking about the rare earth and all that jazz. Well, here it is. The supply chains for the tech is the rare earth. It's the lithium. It's the copper. You can't do anything without copper. It's the gold. Can't do anything without gold. Silver, platinum, all of this stuff is what these countries have a lot of. They got mountains, they got that. So they're integrating with that global ecosystem is very, very important to these countries because it literally is the future of these countries. That's why when you look at what's going on in Venezuela, got to look around Venezuela, Colombia, Chile, Brazil, all these places. It's important. You can't just, get tunnel vision. You got to keep looking out and seeing what other moves are being made. It's all going to be connected. You know, uh, you know, these places are looking for local demand growth for AI, strategic advantages, and digital sovereignty, cost, latency benefits, plus infrastructure and inexpensive labor to build that infrastructure. They're looking for young people so they can have the talent pool to pull from, and then they're looking for governments that are willing to play ball. And I think that's kind of what we're looking at here. This is part of it. It's not the sexy, stuff that those morons in the Trump administration are talking about, but I guarantee you Silicon Valley is looking at all this. Huge, huge, huge future there. So, well, thanks for watching. This is my tech look at what's going down in South America. I think it's relevant. I think it will become more relevant in the next year. And I always look for trends. So this is something I see it's happening. I always follow the money anyway. And once you see, anybody dropping $4 billion into places like Chile, you gotta go, So thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Appreciate all my new subscribers. You guys have been great. And I know that this 2026 is going to be crazy. So hope everyone's along. I'm glad you guys are along for the ride. It's going to be fun. All right. Talk to you guys later. Bye.